if you somehow missed it, Jagex revealed the official release dates of the new upcoming skill Necromancy to be August 7th, so mark your calendars. And get ready to partake in the first ever combat skill since the original Triangle. Now with that said, if you missed my 2 previous shorts this week covering some game jam updates, highly recommend it. Some really cool stuff that was worked on this week, but now we're going to do a follow-up and cover even more game jam projects. Starting off, Mod Shogun continues to deliver, starting off with some changes to the minion portion of the Glacor fight. You can see they spawn in very differently, and on top of that, the little orbs you click on after defeating them will do significantly increased damage. In this video, 10k, but he even upped it to 30k in a later video. Now, I don't know what the official numbers are going to settle down to, but expect, if this goes live, that this portion of the Arc Glacor fight will help contribute to the fights more significantly. The next thing he showed is very early prototype, but it is a change to the Icy Tempest special attack on the Dark Shard of Leng. So currently all it does is activate a buff that lasts for 30 seconds and has a 60-second cooldown. In this change, it now actually does a physical attack as well as its previous buff, and the duration and cooldown has been flipped, so it lasts 60 seconds and has a 30-second cooldown, which seems redundant, but I imagine it's because he doesn't want you spamming the attack portion of the special, but this still allows you to keep the buff portion up indefinitely. Moving on to follow up on the Black Witch short I did, she has taken her graphical updates above ground and has looked at Ardoin. So you can see here we got several images of both West and East Ardoin with a new graphical lick of paint, and most notably the changes to the atmosphere and lighting that really brings it up to modern standards. Even though none of the buildings are really affected, this is enough to help push for graphical cohesion across the entire game world, and it looks awesome. In a similar graphical update, Mod Alex spent his time this game jam overhauling the Necromancer's tower near Ardoin. He says they didn't have time to include it as part of the new skill, but he couldn't let something that looked this bad be associated with the skill. Next in line, we got Mod Dorn, who has helped out in a couple areas with clue scrolls. First, he updated the challenge scroll from Yasandria, and there should be no more delays when you're doing challenge scrolls themselves. On top of this, easy clue NPCs should now give you the next clue or casket a bit faster, and goes on to say that other tiers of clues will follow this potentially later. Moving on, Mod K9 has done some work to allow you to access the Makeover Mage through the customization tab and virtually just be able to make those changes to your skin color, gender, and appearance on the fly. And I have covered this in the past. Mod KLC quickly just revealed that he's continuing his work to kind of create a Demonheim archaeology microsite, and has spent this game jam to continue that project, but it is a much larger scale thing that I imagine would still be far along in the future if it ever sees the light of day. Next up, Mod Breezy has looked at the interface for auras and tried to increase the readability by reworking the icons and making them much larger, and hopefully make them much more memorable and easier to navigate, both on mobile and desktop. So you'll be able to see that not only have the icons themselves changed and been improved, but the way to differentiate their tier has also been changed and visually made more clear at a quick glance. These are definitely not set in stone. They're working on possible alternatives to help illustrate things like tier and shape language, but it seems to be coming along good, and that's an update that I think many of us would appreciate. I personally organize my auras in the list mode instead of the icons because it is kind of hard to tell based on the icons, but I might switch over if this goes live. Next up, Mod Forza has worked on an idea for a beginner's guild. This is very placeholder on these pictures using Camelot as a prototype, and there's no guarantee this will move forward, but it is interesting. I'm not exactly sure what purpose the beginner's guild will do. Maybe it sets you on the path if you're a new player on where you should be looking to progress your character lore-wise, but it is a neat idea. Moving on, Mod Days has spent the game jam doing a smaller update, but probably fairly impactful for your day-to-day scaping, increasing the amount of options for the buff bar, which should give you greater control on what you want and don't want to see appearing on the buff bar, and is willing to take in options and suggestions from the community. So talk to Mod Days if you want specific toggles for certain things on the buff bar to be added. The last thing I want to touch on is some work by Mod Camel, as well as Abe and Fowl and Rain, and and it appears to be maybe an Osseous or some other matriarch, but a fourth skeletal dinosaur that is more than likely going to be the necromancy equivalent of the 3 previous matriarchs. This is still very much work in progress with no release dates and might not even make it into the game, but the concept of it makes total sense, especially since we already have a theme around it with Osseous and a trio of dinosaurs specifically representing each current combat style in the game. So this is definitely something I would love to see implemented, especially since I think the first Necromancer might be the only boss we have in game that is necromancy only, unless they're keeping something under their sleeves obviously, but any more being introduced I'm sure would be welcomed across the board. Anyways, that's it for your Game Jam reveals. If anything new comes up after the release of this video, I'll find a way to get it out to you, either through a short or new video, so stay tuned for that. If you missed the previous ones, check on screen now and see the updates that Mod, Shogun, and Black Witch have already worked on. Anyways, with that, I'm wrapping up the video. I'm out. Aloha.